Welcome to Resilience Redefined. I'm your host, Michael Osterlink. This show is about building better humans, institutions, and systems. On the show, I'll be interviewing many different experts from across many different fields, including human optimization, health and fitness, team building, mind-body medicine. In the institutional space, we're looking at different institutions and how we can create new ones, new models and maps, including in medicine, in education, in intelligence community, in law enforcement, in the military, especially in the special operations community. Thanks for being here and enjoy the show. Today, I'm excited to welcome Coach Kurt Hines, a nationally recognized football coach, leadership speaker, author, and mentor whose influence extends far beyond the game. For more than 29 years, Coach Hines has inspired athletes, coaches, leaders, and organizations by focusing on character, purpose, resilience, and what it truly means to empower others. Whether on the football field, from the stage, or through his best-selling book, Call to Empower, his message is clear. Great leadership is about developing people first. Welcome, Kurt. Good to see you.
Thank you so much for having me on. I know we just started recording for your audience, but having had a chance for 20 or 30 minutes prior just to talk about life and whatnot, I'm excited to talk further and get to know you better.
Yeah, I was just saying before we hit record, I was like, we should just record the last 30 minutes because a lot of good stuff about your philosophy and your thinking and your life, which hopefully we can somewhat replicate some of those stories in our upcoming interview that we're doing right now. But even before I ask you about like your childhood and what led you to become the coach and what you do and eventually your book as well, your father played in a really important role, and you even dedicated or talked about him in the beginning of your book. Share before you share your story, share a little about your father and his role in who you are today.
Yeah, I thank you for that question. I've been blessed to be a guest on a lot of different podcasts over the years, and that's the first time that someone's asked me about my father right out of the gates. So I love that. Um, it's funny. I feel like I could talk for hours on it, and without doing any dishonor to him. Uh, it's been 4 years now that he passed away, and my father was a loving, God-fearing, God-loving, hardworking, blue-collar man, served our country in the Navy for a few years, was in sales. After that, was always present in our lives, was always there, physically. We didn't have a lot of things growing up. I was not poor, but we were definitely not rich financially. But, I think like the blessing for most of us, the more we start to grow ourselves, we look back and we understand what true value, true wealth really is. And I feel like I have been one of the wealthiest people my entire life. And so much of that is attributed to my mother and father and the upbringing I had. My father was a tough man to be raised under. He spanked us growing up when we deserved it, used the belt a few times, but was never abusive. Um, and he's someone that, I talk in my book and I talk a lot in life now. In my mid 50s at 54, I talk about servant leadership. And it's funny because I learned that term servant leadership through not Wayne Dyer, Joe Ehrmann's book, Inside Out Coaching. And now whether you or your listeners are athletes or coaches or former athletes, I would recommend that book, Inside Out Coaching, to every person. And before I get too far off track, um, what Joe Ehrmann does, he played lacrosse and football at Syracuse,
Okay.
was in the Hall of Fame there, ended up going to the Colts to play in the NFL for a few years. But in his book, he breaks down all coaching, all levels, all ages into two categories. By the way, have you heard of his book?
I have not, but
I love this. Now, once again, let me give credit because he's a far smarter man than I am. But he breaks down all coaches into two categories: transactional and transformational.
yeah.
And the more he dives into it, and the longer I've coached for 29 years, I look at coaches who are 100% transactional, where they will become friendly and smile and joke around with the stud players, those young men or young women. They're going to benefit the team and benefit that coach's agenda, but then they'll walk right by that, so to speak, redheaded stepchild, the young man or young woman that's a little bit too big or too small or whatever it may be. And Joe Ehrmann breaks it down into servant leadership. Those leaders who understand that regardless of what the pieces, the pawns, the people, most importantly, are in front of us, that they all have value. They all have a purpose and they all deserve our greatest attention and our greatest effort to bless, serve, and empower them. So the reason I share that is because my father never once in my entire life do I remember him using the term servant leadership. But dang, that's what he was. He was a servant leader. I look back at so many times where we were helping people who were complete strangers to me, but my father knew through church, or my father knew through serving in the youth basketball league, or he knew some way, or he met just once that had a need. And he would tell my brother and I, "Hey, get in the car. We're going to go help someone out." And we'd go help someone. So I look back at, my father and my mother, who were very demanding, called out our BS every single time, as they should have, as I wish we had more of in the world today. Uh, but they were always present. They always loved, and they were, you know, we hear often the term tough love, and I laugh at that because I think, well, tough love, we don't need the word tough. If you love someone, you do the tough things. You have those tough conversations. You do whatever, is required of you as a parent or a leader or a spouse or whatever it is. But my father is someone that shaped who I am in a tremendous way where, you know, there's so much of his life that inspires me still to this day. And the things that annoyed me when he was still alive are so trivial now that I look back. Actually, I just had the blessing of speaking at a funeral, a heartbreaking situation of a coworker. Her stepfather got killed by a drunk driver just 3 weeks ago. He pulled over on the side of the road, her stepfather, to help someone who had broken down. And he and another woman who pulled over, not related at all, both got killed. But I was speaking at the funeral and talking about servant leadership, and I was like, "Well, what a greater way for any of us, whether we have a faith or not, to live our lives in a way where we know we're making a positive difference in the lives of those around us." So, long answer to your short
That's
question,
but it's a
but
great answer. It's a great answer.
appreciate it.
Obviously you're a coach, Coach Hines, books about coaching. We're going to be talking about coaching. Why coaching? What led you into becoming a coach?
Yeah, modeling never really took off for me. I'm just kidding. Hopefully your audience, I'm not sure if you put a video of this or just the audio, but they can see the sarcasm in my eyes. Yeah, why coaching? It's for me. You know what it was? I 7th grade math. I look back, I was never a great student,
Okay.
and 7th grade math, and math was my least favorite subject of all. Um, I had a teacher, Mr. Nicholas, who would sit in the corner of his desk every day for 5 or 10 minutes, it seemed, and he would just say, "Hey, Michael, tell me about," and he would know something that you were interested in, passionate about, whether it was theater, arts, sports, whatever, and he would ask a bunch of students, and there wasn't always the same students. He didn't have his favorites, or if he did, he didn't let us know. And I remember sitting there in 7th grade math thinking, I want to do that. I want to be able to be in a position where I can make a difference because I was in a class I hated, learning a subject I hated, saw no value in, but being taught by a man who I knew cared about me as a person, not as a student necessarily. So for me, I knew I wanted to be a teacher from a very early age, which is so mind blowing still now after teaching elementary school for 32 years because I hated school and I love teaching now. Um, but what the coaching happened was I was in college and one of my professors one day had asked the class, "Hey, there's a middle school down the road that's looking for a volunteer for their flag football team for some special needs students. You can get community service hours for it." So I jumped at the chance, and I remember my first practice, Michael, being on that middle school field with a young woman with Down syndrome. We couldn't have been standing more than 4 yards apart with a small youth-sized football, and I was tossing it to her underhand and she would drop it and laugh and throw it back to me and drop it and laugh. And that went on for 4, 5, 6 catches, whatever, or not catches, but attempts. And then when she finally caught it, I saw her eyes light up and I was like, I had a paradigm shift. I was like, oh, that's what I want to do. Because I knew I was going to school for education already. I was like, why haven't I ever thought about this? I started playing football from in 2nd grade through college. I want to coach. So I reached out to, as soon as I graduated college, I reached out. My wife and I had gotten married at 22, really young. Um, Reached out to a local high school and said I'd like to volunteer. Wasn't even looking for a paid position. And fast forward 29 years later, it's been a part of my life. It's been and you know this as well as I do with your background and what you do. So often, our job is to serve people and it's such a blessing, but it is draining. It is overwhelming, and it doesn't. Even though I may not leave my classroom every day with a stack of papers, or I don't always leave the coach's office with physical things, they're always on your heart. They're always on your mind, and it is really a struggle and a challenge to say, all right, I've got to practice what I preach, be where my feet are, And when I'm with my wife and children and grandchildren, be with my wife and children and grandchildren. Um, but it's funny because for those of us that are passionate about what we do, and you can't stay in education or coaching or what you do for 10, 20, 30 years plus if you're not passionate about it. Um, it fills our cup also to know that we make a difference. As long as I know my ego doesn't get in the way and I do it for the right reason, I know I'm making a difference every single day. And that's why still to this day, I feel like one of the wealthiest people alive. And most of my family and friends make more money than I do. But man, I wake up every day with a purpose. And not saying they don't, not saying they're not great
Yeah,
people,
of
but
course, of
that
course.
purpose fuels me. Yeah.
Well, and the purpose is interesting because I know you also talk about your why, which is
Mhm.
very is a intertwined it's an intertwined concept. Why is why? Why is why? Why is why or why is a purpose? Why do you think it's so important for us to discover what that is for us as individuals?
Life's hard. Life from getting fired, which is trivial in the grand scheme of things, because you can get a new job, from losing a loved one that whether you believe in an afterlife or not, you may or may not believe you see them again. Life is hard. You know, we're dealing right now, my wife and I, with her parents. We're here in San Diego. We're actually flying out the night of the 4th to go back to Boston for 10 days because her parents are battling with dementia and we're moving them out here. And that's been a whole year and a half of just seeing my wife just break down and find the strength to carry on and trying to figure out like how do you help a loved one, your best friend, when you don't have the answers, but you can just be there for them. For me, that the power of why, and a lot of people have spoken on it. It's not mine. And like you said, you can call it your why, your purpose. You know, there can be a lot of different terms for it. It's what gets us out of bed in the morning. What is going to motivate us when we're in high school to go to the class where we know the teacher doesn't like us. We know that they're teaching something we're never going to use. Why do we still show up? Why do we show up for that job that may not pay as much as we think we're worth? Or, and I can go on with different examples. You know, in sports, if we're not the starter, maybe we're not even second string. We're not even seeing the varsity field yet. Why still get up? And I think for us, most people unfortunately go throughout life never really knowing who they are or whose they are. And what I mean by that is knowing who they are to a core, not who their parents wanted them to be, but who they are, whether they like who they are or not, and whose they are. For me, I find my strength through my relationship with God. For others, they may not have that, and for them, they may not be lacking that. It might be the universe, it might be something else. But I think most of us understand that we're not the be all and end all. There's something greater than ourselves out there, whatever we call that or them or whatever that is. So having a strong why, I think, gets us out of that rat race of, I think, unfortunately, the great majority of people who just exist. They get up, they might get in a beautiful car that's worth more than my house, and they might go on these vacations that they're posting about all these things, but you know deep and down inside the family's just hurting or the individual's hurting. For me, the why is something that even through the storms, even through the chaos, gets us up and out of bed in the morning.
I love that. That's awesome. Is that one of the things when you're a coach that you taught your students? And actually, even before you answer that question, give us some ideas. Give the listening and viewing audience. It's a viewing audience, so those who are watching can see your face earlier.
Good.
I was listening. He was smiling when he said he's a model. But give us a little bit of history of places you've been to coach and some of your experiences there.
Yeah. So,
The
so it
five-
started back in Sauhegan, New Hampshire, the East Coast, Boston, 2 hours north of that. Where I was the head freshman coach for 7 years, and Mike Bellabo, the head coach, still friends with him today. He's come to both my parents' funerals. He drives several hours for that. Um, at the end of every season, he was like, "Hey, Kirk, come on up to the varsity." I'm like, "Nah, I'm good." Like, I didn't even care about being a varsity coach. I just liked what I was doing, and I understood the blessing of and the difference between using football for my agenda or using the football as a platform to serve people. And there's a big
Yeah,
difference there. So I was there at Sauhegan for 7 years, and then I got a call one day from the head coach in the town we lived in. Said, "Hey, we'd love to have you on our staff," and that's the only reason I left. Because my wife and I have 3 daughters and one son, and our son was at that time in sixth or seventh grade. And I thought, hey, to be able to coach him someday, that'd be great. Not why I got into it. So I went there, and after 2 weeks, I said to my wife, "I'm done. I'm gonna honor my commitment. I'm gonna see the year through, but this coach here is just not I'm not even talking X's and O's. It's just we didn't see eye to eye on the philosophy of how you should treat other human beings, which was biggest. It still is for me.
yeah.
So she said, "Well, apply for the head coaching job at Bedford High School." It was a brand new high school, just another town over that my wife was working at. And I said, "Jill, thank you. You know, she's my best friend." I said, "I love you. But I've been a freshman coach for 7 years, a varsity assistant for 2 weeks. I don't think they're looking for me." And she kind of called me on my own stuff. You know, I hadn't written the book at that point, but she's like, "You're always talking about facing adversity and doing, challenging."
Sure.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So I applied for it. And first interview went well. Second interview, I ended up getting the job. I'll cut to the chase, but they asked me a question. They said, "Coach, it's a very affluent community we live in. If you get the job, how long before you're in the playoffs?" Now, keep in mind, Bedford had phased in the high school, so they didn't have any seniors yet. Um, didn't have a varsity senior yet season yet. And I said 3 to 5 years. And both the principal and the superintendent laughed at me. And I thought to myself, well, I just lost that job.
Oh,
Uh,
gee.
sure enough, my first year as head coach, we set records in the state of New Hampshire for getting beat up. Well, for getting beat up more than any other school in the history of sports.
Oh,
Yeah. Yeah,
the
I
right
can
way of
laugh about
thinking.
it now, but I'm not sure if you or any of your listeners ever saw the movie Green Mile, but after every game my first year as head coach, I felt like I was walking that Green Mile, like dead man walking, like just seeing the eyes burn holes through me. Um, and we lost every game my first year as head coach, for several reasons. One, we didn't have any seniors yet. That was that much of the reason, very small part of it. Two, I was a horrible head coach. I didn't you don't know what you don't know. I look at who I am now as a teacher 32 years later. I'm a far greater teacher now, not compared to anyone else, but compared to who I was
Yeah, yeah,
that
yeah.
I you know? Um, so what happened was, I didn't lose my job that first year. Second year, we won 2 games. I thought, "Okay." I said 3 to 5. Third year, we made the playoffs, and my last 4 years, we went to the state championship 3 out of the 4 years. We didn't win it once. I need to put it out there. I did not win a state championship back in New Hampshire, but not I, but we built something truly powerful now where that school, the Bedford High School, is still one of the best schools in the state of New Hampshire.
That's awesome.
Um,
Okay.
and, my final senior year season there, we went to the state championship, lost by 6. Literally the next Monday, our oldest daughter called and she said, "Mom, Dad, I'm pregnant." And our hearts leapt. I was just like, "Yes, let's go." And I was like, I knew we didn't want to be grandparents. Like, this is great. Skype or Zoom, FaceTime is great for things like this. But with family, there's nothing that beats, in person. So 11 and a half years ago, we sold everything. I say sold everything. I teach elementary school. We sold a few things we had, and we drove across country. Um, and I was an assistant at Christian Elementary School where I still teach now. I teach fourth grade, but I was an assistant at the high school, and just felt the call to be a head coach again. It's funny, as I'm sure you know, whether you own your own business or if you're a head coach, there's a lot of things that are very enticing and appetizing to someone from a distance about being a leader or being in charge or having a position of authority.
Mhm.
But there's a lot more, heavy is the crown or heavy is the head that wears the crown. I have an assistant coach that often said. But for me, that the number one reason for being a head coach was to be in a position of power. And I don't mean power over other people, but in the position of power of being to choose who I coached with. Because
Mm.
I want to coach with people that, yes, know the game of football, but far greater than that, know people and understand how to reach people, connect with people, and understand that it's our job, going back to Joe Ehrman with Inside Out Coaching, it's our job to serve every young man or young woman that plays for us, not just the studs. And I think the world of football, as much as I love it, and there are so many great coaches out there, I do still think we're overpopulated. Probably not just football, but with dumb jock Neanderthal mentalities of, hey, it's all about winning. Well, yeah, I agree. If you're about winning the hearts of those you're blessed to coach. But if it's just about the scoreboard, you can look at, fill in the blank of any professional team you want, any sport. The greatest coaches of all time, eventually people are sitting on their couch, well overweight, who have never played a snap of professional sports, who are judging those athletes or those coaches. So sooner or later, no matter what we do, someone's going to question our knowledge and ability as a coach with the X's and O's. So knowing that, why not become as fluent as we can be in that realm of the game, but at the same time, do it for the right reasons. Try to build up other people. So I applied to be the head coach at Coronado, was the head coach there for 9 years. It's funny when I say it, we made the playoffs 8 out of 9 years. That's true. However, It's very misleading because in California, a lot of things are messed up, and the Athletics are one of them. Too many teams make the playoffs. But what we did do that I take great pride in, not I, but what we did do was my first year as head coach in Coronado. We had 32 young men in the entire program, freshmen through seniors, very small. The last year we had over 74,
Wow.
so we're more than double in size. Our first year, my first year as head coach, we had 12 of those 32 young men at the time. We didn't have any young women at that time. 12 of them were academically ineligible. So we started our weekly grade checks. My final season out of 74, everyone was academically eligible. Um,
Okay.
and then I got let go at the end of this past season. The principal, and I'm not going to say his name on here, not a bad guy. He was doing his job, but wouldn't give me a reason. Many of us think it was because of the team Bible studies we had. It is a public school. We were doing it through the right avenues, the right channels.
Mhm.
But it's one of those things where I think so often, and this last thing I'll say on this question here, I was lying to my assistant coaches and to our players, and not intentionally, but I was telling them, hey, don't let football define you. Football's not who you are. It's part of who you are, but you have so much more. And then I got fired and my world was rocked. I was like, whoa, wait a minute. Who am I? So it's been a blessing for me to be like, listen, this is a great opportunity, as painful as it was, to step back and say, yes, I've coached high school football for 29 years, but who am I? I am a husband. I'm a father, a grandfather. I am a Christian. For me, that's, and so whether it's you are a Jew, you are an atheist, you are a Protestant, whatever it is, we've got to have some sort of identity. And I'm not saying to cling to because we're not strong enough, but something that says, hey, listen, no matter what the outward circumstances are, there's more to you than just what meets the eye to not only the outsiders and the people that look at us, but when we look at ourselves in the mirror, most importantly, I'm preaching to the choir, but there's going to be something more. So, very long answer to your question about my coaching journey and where I've been, but everywhere I've been, it's been the same. And what I mean by that is you coach some really amazing young men and young women, and you coach some really amazing challenges. And I mean that to my core because the ones that are the hardest to coach need it the most. Just like in the classroom, the one that shows up tardy almost every day and tired and stressed and doesn't do his or her homework in fourth grade, which really isn't that important. What is important to me is that I make a connection with them and let them know that I love them just the same as the person sitting next to them that is on time every time and gets their work in and gets straight A's. I tell my students, your grades do not matter to me. And I tell the parents that too, and they look at me like, whoa, hold on. Especially because we're private school, we're paying good money for this. It doesn't. I don't care about your grades. I care about your learning
Mm.
because I know a lot of people who are very successful in life who are really solid C students who never got those A's. You know,
You've mentioned spirituality, and you mentioned how that informs both your identity, but also how you show up in the world. Can you speak a little bit more about that? That specifically, but also I know, having read your book and what you say on like social media, character matters. So
yeah.
can you both talk about character broadly speaking and spirituality specifically for you?
Yeah. Broadly speaking, character, and once again, this is something I've heard over the years, and there's so many different nuances and sayings about it. But character is who you are in the dark, or character is who you are when no one else is looking. Do I pick up a piece of trash just because I know I'm walking by the principal's office and outside of her courtyard there's a piece of trash and she might see me, or do I pick it up well after hours when everyone else has left the building, but I just know it's right? Simple things like that. Not only do I think make the world, and I truly do think make the world a better place, I think it makes us better knowing that we did something that is, I pick up trash all the time. It's trivial. It's not really changing how green the world is. It makes the slightest difference. But for me, it makes a difference because even if no one else ever sees it, my goal every morning, this ties into my spirituality. I ask God for strength every day. God, help me get out of my own way. Help me let go of my ego. Another great thing. I'm not sure if you've heard of Wayne Dyer,
Mhm.
who's passed away years ago.
Yeah.
Uh, and this, once again, for your listeners, this is not my own. I think I say some pretty cool things, but I'm not this cool. Um, I always thought ego was that cocky, arrogant coach or player or coworker or whatever boss that thought that he or she was better than others. And Wayne Dyer, in one of his books, I don't remember which one it was, but talks about ego being anytime we edge God out.
Oh,
And
wow. Okay.
dang, I was like, I have an ego when I get asked to speak at places. Um, If it's a right fit, I'll say yes, but often, even once I've signed that contract, I'm still questioning and doubting myself. Who am I? Do I have the credentials, the ability, the 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 way to speak in a way that captivates an audience as large as they're asking, whatever it may be. And when that happens, I'm edging God out. So for me, spirituality is knowing not just who we are, but whose we are,
Mhm.
and connecting it to a strength that says, you know what, for me, I should say, and I can, without sharing what we talked about offline, for your listeners now, as I said earlier, life's hard. We're all going to face challenges that shake us to a core at some point or not in our lives, that drop us to our knees and make us say, "Is it worth it?"
Mhm.
And we don't have to get into anxiety and depression, which are very real feelings. Um, but I have too many people near and dear to me who battle with depression or have been in states of their life where they've just anxiety has controlled so much of them. I have had a small glimpse of that, not even really worth talking about. But the reason I do bring it up is because I feel like if we don't have something that we can look to and say, I can't do this on my own, but I know there's an energy, a frequency, a power, a source, whatever it is that I can draw from, that I can intentionally every day go to, whether it's through prayer or meditation or whatever it may be, give us strength. I think we're missing out because we don't have all the answers. No, none of us will. And there's another quote I have in my classroom. Um, Keep in mind, I teach at a private Christian school, but it says, aim not to be like other Christians, aim to be like Christ, which I always tell the students reminds me of a quote from Gandhi that says, I like your Christians. Sorry, I like your Christ. I do not like your Christians. Your Christians are so unlike your Christ. And for me, I'm like, oh my gosh, how true is that? Because as I shared, there are people who dress the part every Sunday,
Mhm.
post everything that looks nice and lovely in the world, who behind closed doors are doing horrible things that can never be undone. And I look at that now, I'm like, if I didn't have a faith of my own, a testimony, something that is my rock that gives me strength, I know I wouldn't be the man that I am today. And not that there aren't great men and great women who have a different belief, who are doing even greater things. But for me, it's something that I hold on to because it's what gives me strength.
That's beautiful. Really, really good. And I like, I think it's so important that you do talk about character a lot. But I want to take this conversation kind of more to the sociocultural, historical space for a moment. You've been doing this for a while, a couple decades,
Yeah.
3 decades. What have you seen in terms of the young people 25 years ago, 15 years ago, 10 years ago, today, in terms of capacity, skills, character, you see shifting in the culture?
Yeah. Let me start answering that by saying, and I love, Jocko Willink has extreme ownership, and he's a Navy SEAL that has a book. I want to start by saying it's not their fault. It's not their fault. And the reason I'm saying that is because I don't think today's youth have the same strength, resiliency. I won't say capacity. I think they have just as much capacity as we have, but I think our generation has messed them up. Not all of us, but it's our generation where we're the ones that said everyone gets a trophy.
Yeah.
We're the ones that says, "Hey, I'm gonna bubble wrap our kids." We're the ones that says, "Oh, wait, they're not doing as well as we thought they were in a sport or a class. Let me call the teacher and say, fix it. Let me call the coach and say, fix it." As opposed to sitting down with our child and say, "Hey, we're sorry you're hurting. We know this is really hard. We know you wanted to be the starting fill in the blank, whatever it is, but what a great opportunity to show up at practice a little bit earlier every day. And what a great opportunity. Sorry you failed the class and you have to take it again, or you have to do summer school, but it's not your teacher's fault." Because you're gonna have bosses that don't explain assignments to you very clearly sometimes, and you have to figure it out.
Yeah.
And you're gonna have relationship challenges with your spouse where there's no manual, even though there are marriage books out there where you and your wife or you and your husband have to look at each other and just say, "Hey, we're in the thick of it right now. How do we together get out of this?" I think the youth today are smart. I think they're resilient. I think they are capable, but I think we have sugar coated and bubble wrapped them in such a way that we've gotten them to believe that they don't have a phone in their hand 24/7, or if they don't have the answers to a test before they take a test, that they're not going to, do well in life, and they have to fill up to a certain quota. Um, I also think, and I also tell our coaches whenever I'm hiring coaches, like, don't try to be like me. Don't try to be, and I'm not putting myself in the same category as Bill Belichick or whoever, but don't try to be like me or any professional coach or a college coach. The young men and young women we coach, are smart enough and they'll see right through your BS. They don't need another Coach Hines. They don't need another Coach Bill Belichick. They don't need another fill in the blank. They need you to come to them authentically and transparently and say, I have a lot of the answers. I'm going to help you be great. I don't have all the answers. I'm going to mess up at times. I'm going to get mad at you for blowing your assignment sometimes when it's not even your fault. And I'm going to own it and apologize. I think our youth of today need us to lead them and not to be their best friend. They don't need a best friend. They need us to say, "Hey, listen, no, I'm pissed off at you right now. You're messing things up. You're coming to class or coming to practice unprepared. It's your fault. It's your responsibility. You need to fix it. How can I help you?"
Yeah.
And then make sure that we're saying, "Hey, we're here for you, but you have to do the part." Because we all have family members, we all have friends or coworkers or clients or students or athletes that we've given everything to. Everything's right before them, and they just the whole adage, "You can lead a horse to water, but can't make it drink." They have to take ownership in being a part of the change. Um, I will share this. I just sent a text with my wife's permission to to her brother and his wife because they're going through a really hard time now, like a really really hard time, and it's been heavy on my heart and my wife's heart. And like Jill, I don't want to just sit here and have them end up getting divorced and say a year or two or five later, man, I wish I would have said something. So this morning I spent a little over an hour sending them a very long text, but it was over an hour because I would write something, pray on it, delete it, change it, and preface it by saying, Jill and I love each other. We love our marriage. We don't have it all figured out. We don't have all the answers. We're just here to help because we love you. And not knowing if I'd ever get a response from either of them, and not knowing if the response would be, "Hey, go to hell. How dare you try to tell us what to do?" Um, Fortunately, the one response I've gotten from one of them so far was, "Thank you so much." And yeah, yeah, it was what I prayed for. And the reason I share that, and obviously not going into details with what they're battling with and specifically their names, is because I think we all want people in our lives that are gonna call us on our BS. I think every head coach or every business owner needs a right-hand man or woman that says, "Hey, listen, if you hear me talking one way in front of parents and administrators, but then behind closed doors in the locker room, you hear words out of my mouth that I'm not using with the parents and the administrators, please call me on that."
Good.
If you hear me pulling a young man aside and berating him and tearing him down like it's the Marines, because it's not, and not then in that same breath building him up, call me on my BS. And we need people in our lives, no matter what stage we are, they're gonna love us enough. I think we talked off camera about
I was
tough
going to
love.
say,
Yeah,
I was going to bring that up, the tough love
yeah.
thing. Yeah. Yeah.
But as I said off camera, we don't need the word tough with love because love is all encompassing. If we really do love those that we're blessed to lead, whether it's our family or others, we're gonna have those hard conversations. And that's the reason I brought up the text to my in-laws.
Yeah.
Because I love them and I want the best for them. And if I can be a tiny piece of them pausing, pondering, and praying and coming together, then I think I'm helping them in that situation as well. But I think our youth was the original question. Our youth have so much potential. We just need to get out of their way. And I don't mean get out of their way and just let them figure it out. Guide them and help steer that ship. Give them the tools necessary, but then let them fail.
Yeah.
Because I'm sure that both of us could talk on uh, ad nauseum about our greatest strengths. And if we dig deep enough, we realize they all come from our greatest challenges. They all come from our toughest times that, man, my wife and I think we were talking about the other night, we had, about 2 weeks ago, we had a stupid fight, a really stupid fight. Probably the 3rd or 4th one we've had in 32 years of marriage.
Wow.
But one of the things that we've been blessed with, because she truly is my best friend, we pray together every morning and every night. And when we have a stupid fight like we did, it lasted for about 3 hours. Um, but when we get back together, of sitting down and saying, This isn't us. This is not us. This is not who we want to be. Where do I need to apologize?" And if the other person isn't saying it, we need to say, like, "Hon, I need you to apologize for this." And have them be like, "Oh my gosh, I had no idea that offended you." Or say, "No, I'm not going to apologize for it." But have those hard conversations.
Yeah. My background is actually as a marriage and family therapist. So
Oh,
I
you must be cringing now saying, "Yeah, coach is right on this, but he's way off on
I
this."
was gonna say, I really appreciate the fact that it's cool that you and your wife had very few arguments over the years. But I love hearing how you handled it.
Yeah, and I think that's why we have little ones here and there, but the big ones, it's just I think wedding vows, once again, whether it's in a church or a field or the beach, whatever it is, there's some point in that wedding vow in different words, but somewhere related to through better or worse,
Mhm.
thick or thin, that two are becoming one. And I think we become, I'm not a big video game player. Nothing against people that are, but the thing I talk about this in coaching often, with video games is if you're not doing well, what do? Reset, start again, reset, start again, reset, start again. And I think, and you look at NIL deals, the transfer portal in college football now for males and females. I'm not starting, reset, transfer, reset, go somewhere else. I think the older generation, are creating a generation of quitters, of people that when things are challenging, just press reset. I don't like where I am with my wife right now. There's a lot of pretty women out there. Let me go reset. And not even realizing that if I'm going to have anything worth having, you've got to have hard conversations. You've got to have those challenging moments. And those moments that suck are the ones that bring out all the sweetness later. You're like, wow, I'm going through a really hard time with my wife, which I am right now, with her parents, that she jokes around. She'll talk to others. She's like, oh, poor Kurt. I come home and he puts on the 5-point harness seatbelt because it's a roller coaster ride of which Jill is going to walk through the door. Literally, sometimes she's like bouncing around all bubbly and happy. And sometimes I look at her and you can tell she's been crying on the way home. And I'm just like, and I can't fix it. But because we've been through the crap together, I'm like, listen, this hurt. This is easy to get through because all I need to do is just be there for her. I don't have to try to solve it. I just need to be there and listen. And that's taken me years also because I think so many, better than I do. So many males with the best of intentions want to hear a problem. Give me the abbreviated version, first of all. Shame on us. Give me the abbreviated version, and then let me show you how good I am, how strong I am. I'll take care of it. That's not what they need.
Yeah.
But we do it with good intentions. And just like our wives don't need us to fix them or the situation, our children don't need us to fix them or the situation. They need us to say, hey, listen, no, your coach is right. So and so is bigger, faster, or stronger. So and so knows their plays better. Or maybe you're a better athlete, but you're not reliable because your grades keep them guessing whether or not you're going to be eligible. So I think there's a lot of it.
You actually did a great job. I should like take this out and say, this is my program because you just articulated what I share because I work with men and women, but also couples, and I co-lead a men's group. And I'll say all the time, hey, no judgment, like what you just shared. Men have a tendency to want to fix, and it's mostly from a good heart. Now,
Yep.
sometimes it's because I don't like being uncomfortable with you being uncomfortable, so it's more about me than you. But there's multiple dynamics at play, but mostly it's from a good place. But I
Yep.
teach them like that's not necessarily what your wife wants from you. And you just did a great job of articulating, like, yeah, it does. Maybe there are times that she might be like, "Hey, can you help me think through and fix something?" Awesome, but most of the times, from my experience and what you just shared, is like, I just want someone to listen to me,
Yeah.
acknowledge and hear me out, and be there for me in that kind of way.
Yeah, and to go full circle, when you had started, thank you again, asking about my father. And I talk about this in a book in a very brief chapter, but in seventh grade, I had a D in some class, and my parents wanted us to be, good students, and A's and B's, C's were okay if they saw us working hard. But I had a D one time. My parents said, if you don't get the D up, you're not playing football next year. I don't know why, Michael. I didn't believe them because they were not empty threat parents. But for some reason, I didn't put forth the effort. And my D not only did not go up, it went down to an F. And I remember August 1st or whatever it was, around that time of the year, heading into my eighth grade year, was the day that you go to the local school to sign up and weigh in for football. And I remember saying to my father, like, Dad, we leave soon. My father saying, Kurt, you're not playing football this year. And me walking down the hallway in my bedroom and slamming the door, but still not believing him and just thinking, but just being annoyed with him, thinking, Dad, I get it. We're going to be late now. I got to stand in a long line. But you thinking in my mind, you better come down here and say, fine, we'll go. Hope you learned your lesson. Well, the time never came. And for almost an entire football season in eighth grade, at that very mature stage of my life, I thought I hated my parents. I look back at that decision they made to stick to what they had said as one of the greatest lessons they ever taught me. Because as great as sports are, I had to be a student athlete. I had to have my priorities straight. Um, and I look back at that, and what I thought was the cruelest thing they could have ever done to me was one of the most loving.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
And I had to fix it. I had to get my grades up.
yeah. It goes back to the personal responsibility you said that we need to see more of in our culture, generally speaking, but also others. the children, the kids, young
Yeah.
adults.
Yeah.
Called to Power, Empower, your book. Whoops, let's make it there together.
Yeah.
There you go.
There you go.
Why'd you write the book? And here's the book for.
Like most smart men, I'm gonna blame my wife for most good decisions I've made. Uh, for years, people online, would comment on all the different social media platforms, "Oh, you should write a book." And it was very flattering, but it was also in my mind of, these are nice family friends and people that follow me and I follow them, but it's really easy to click a button on a phone and say, "Oh, I like that," or retweet that, as opposed to spending 9.99 or 19.99 or whatever you're purchasing. Then after a few years, enough people were saying it where my wife was like, "Kurt, you have the time, like, 'cause I have summers off." I was still doing the weight room in the mornings, for a few hours, but I had the time. So I wrote the book. It took me about 3 years to write, and, before you judge me too much, because you have the book, so thank you. Thank you again for the support. It's a really simple book, really short. Here's the reason why. It goes back to my ego. I was edging God out. I would write a chapter, which came through a lot of thought and reflection, but it's a short book. I would write a chapter and then put it down and intentionally be like, "Hey, I'll get back to it tomorrow. I'll do 2 chapters tomorrow," and not get back to it for about 2 months because I would have those ego thoughts edging God out and like, who am I to write a book? Why am I writing a book?" And still to this day, the imposter syndrome, I have been so blessed. Blue collar, have had a lot of challenges in my life, but I have all 4 limbs. I wasn't through some tragic accident. I lost both parents in my early 50s. I've been so blessed. And there are people who from birth have had more challenges every single day of their lives than I've had in the greatest challenging day of my life. So those are the struggles I had. The reason I ended up writing it was I had heard from a friend that statement about ego. And I was like, dang, that's what I'm doing with the book. That and I was like, let me put it out there. And it's funny with the book because also with the videos that I post online, I'm not proud of this now, but I would often hold that, the phone like this, do the video, watch the video and think, nah, I could do that again and do 3, 4, 5, 7 different takes. And I was acting, no offense to 13-year-old schoolgirls, but I always use that analogy. I was acting like a 13-year-old schoolgirl thinking, will someone like it enough? Will it get enough views? Will it get enough likes? And then I was like, Kurt, you're a grown friggin' man, what are you doing? So now when something comes to my heart, I just do it, one and done, post it, and very similar with the book, my thought, my prayer, my intention is if it can bless, serve, and empower one person to be a better husband, a better wife, a better father, a better employer, coach, fill in the blank, or to just get through a hard time, then that's a book well written. So that's why I wrote it, and I am the best selling author in my family. I'm the only one in my my family that's written. I'm hoping no one else does for another year or two. But it's been a cool thing, and it's funny too. As I'm not going to ask you on camera, but I think I'm older than you. But
No.
I'm not. No, all right. Well, you look good. Um, but I think you get to a certain age and you realize. For years, I was self conscious about taking my shirt off at the beach. I'm a big, strong guy in the weight room. If you walk by me, like, dang, this big guy, but I just too soft in the middle. Also, my decision because I was eating too much junk food and I wasn't doing what I had to do. But I think for all of us, you get to a certain point in your life and you look at, and I'm an optimist at the core, but you look at lives lived to projected lives remaining, and you think, A, I'm not guaranteed tomorrow. My wife and I have plans this afternoon. I'm so excited. I could get into a car accident and this could be the last podcast I ever do. So the reason I say that is we're not promised or guaranteed anything. If you have a book on your heart, write the damn book.
Yeah.
If you have a job you want to apply or a business you want to start, I'm not saying it's not going to come with challenges, heartache, sleepless nights, failure after failure after failure, but chase that dream or do that thing because the world's overpopulated. No, it's not. I'm disagreeing with myself. I was going to say I wish the world was overpopulated with people who have done the impossible, but I think most of us don't do it because we're too afraid to fail.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I think we need more people who say, as simple as writing a book is, and there are challenges with it, do it, do that, and you won't have regrets. And I think for me, not only our children, my wife and I, but we now have 3 grandsons and 1 granddaughter. What a cool thing for them in 50 years from now
Yeah.
after they've gone through a lot of their life and maybe forgot the conversations and look back in some old chest or trunk when I'm long gone and go, "Oh, wait, Papa wrote a book. Hey, look at this." So it's I think, if I had more of those type things from my parents, pictures and videos and things, they'd be worth their weight in gold.
I love that. It's awesome. What question did I not ask you that you'd love to answer?
It just came to my heart, so I'm gonna say it.
Yeah.
What's next? What's next? Man, I hate that I'm saying it because I don't have the answer. But this to tie everything together, it goes back to spirituality for me is, I don't have to know what's next. I just need to know today that I'm granted that I already did this. God, help me get out of my own way. Help me be a service to someone else. And when I fail, because I'm going to, help me do better tomorrow. I think I feel like we could talk forever. I feel like I could talk to you forever, but, um, yeah, it's just I love your life. I think for all of us, if I had one message to share with the world, uh, is that, the world's a better place with you in it. I truly believe that, and I think the people that are doing evil things in this world, and there's a lot of corruption, and I think on all sides of politics,
Yeah,
I
yeah,
think that
yeah.
I think there's a lot of corruption, a lot of evil out there that's very real. Um, we may not change the evil, but I think, darkness can't exist without light, and the world needs more light in it, and we need to be a light to people around us. And I think, the last thing I'll say for right now, unless you have another question, is when I keep on praying about getting out of your own way. I remember vividly, about 2 or 3 years ago, I was just in a funk, and life was great. I had no idea. I woke up in a bad mood. My wife and I hadn't been in an argument. My kids were all great. I was just in a bad mood. My wife and I went to church, came back, and I couldn't get out of it, and it was bothering me more and more because I consider myself an optimist to the core. So I was like, "Hon, I'm just gonna go for a walk right now and just listen to some worship music and figure out what the heck is going on." Left our house, and I wasn't more than a half a mile, not even half mile down the road, and there were two elderly women trying to get this big outdoor vase, potter's plant, plant pot, whatever, out of the back of a truck onto the ground. And I thought, "There's no way they're doing it." So I took my headphone and I said, "Can I help you guys for a second?" Helped him move to the backyard. It took me less than 2 minutes. Um, and then I started walking again, and I felt my entire energy be different. And I'm like, "Oh, you idiot, that's it." Like, I was in a funk, and it wasn't anything to do with me, it's just I hadn't done something yet that day for someone else.
That's beautiful.
Yeah, and I think, man, if we set out every day saying, "God, let," or whatever universe, I wanna respect all people's beliefs because mine are real and mine are true for me.
Mhm.
That doesn't mean it's the truth for everyone else. It's my reality, my perception. But I think if we get out of our own way and look to serve others every single day, we're gonna feel the difference in the days we do and the days we don't, and it's infectious. The more we do it, the
Yes.
more we're like, "That felt good," you
Yeah.
know? So that's
That's a great concluding message. Now, people are gonna be watching and listening to this. I want to encourage them to get your book, of course. You have a website. Tell us where we can find all your stuff and your social media presence as well.
yeah, absolutely. The website is Coach Kurt Hines,
Yeah.
www. It's funny, we tell our players all the time on Twitter's really big, especially in football. And we're like, listen, don't put fast cleats 69 or what, try to be funny to your buddies or whatever. Just put your real face, your real name so college coaches can find you. So for any of your listeners that may have heard something they liked, it's Coach Kurt Hines on Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, Facebook. It's just Kurt Hines. But and then, yeah, the website's Coach Kurt Hines, and that it's the blessing about that in social media for me is I think it's like a loaded gun. I think in the wrong hands, the wrong time, it's gonna cost someone their job, their life, their relationship. In the right hands, I look at instances like this. We connected
Yeah,
it
yeah.
seems a year ago now, and I'm more interested in your future, your success, and what's going on with you and your girlfriend and the school she's doing now and where life takes you in a few years.
Yeah,
Yeah. So I think, just connect with people. Just connect with people, and if you have listeners that have something I said resonated with them, I'd love to connect with them.
that's awesome. Thank you, Coach Hines.
Thank
This has
you.
been a great conversation. We're looking forward to this. Definitely want to encourage folks to make sure you can see it. Check out Call to Empower, and forward to more conversations with you in the near and far future.
Absolutely. I appreciate having me on.
You're welcome.